Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown, 2 blocks away from a murder scene here in Langley, British Columbia.
Well, that's uplifting.
Apparently, a gentleman was riding in a taxi along 53rd, and someone pulled up beside them and shot them and killed them. So that happened. They're not providing any more information about that at this time, but, you know, it's my neighborhood, and it always kind of weirds me out when something like that happens close to home. Anyway, how are you, Matthew?
Hello.
How are things there in Vancouver?
It's not as bad as it was yesterday. I was out in Surrey yesterday.
Okay.
For a 100th day party for a child, a traditional Chinese thing.
Oh, that's nice.
You celebrate 100 days / housewarming, and it's up in Surrey Heights. I tell you one thing, Mike, definitely different than your Surrey neighborhood.
Yeah, my Surrey neighborhood was not good.
I was like, whoa, Surrey can be quite nice, actually.
Yeah, Surrey can be quite upscale, but you have to go to different places.
I was like saying to my husband, oh, we should move to the burbs. It's this beautiful 4,000 square foot house.
Yep, you could get a lot of bang for your buck in Surrey.
Yeah, unfortunately. Justin doesn't drive.
Well, he'd have to learn or take the bus or the SkyTrain, blech. Anyway, let's forge forth with this one.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're 2 ordinary Canadian schmucks chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some Dark Poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
On December 26, 2005, around 5:15 p.m., there was a gunfight outside the Foot Locker store on Yonge Street in downtown Toronto. Unfortunately, a 15-year-old girl named Jane Creba was shot and killed. She was an innocent bystander among hundreds of Boxing Day shoppers who were in the area at the time of the shooting. Sadly, she was caught in the middle of the gunfire and died from a single bullet that hit her in the back and pierced her aorta. In addition to Jane, 6 other people were injured in the shooting. You are listening to Dark Poutine, episode 387, Boxing Day Bystander, The Killing of Jane Creba. The year 2005 stands out in Toronto's memory as a time of heightened anxiety and repeated tragedy on city streets. For many, it became known as the Year of the Gun. Police statistics recorded 52 gun-related homicides in the city, a record at that point and a stark warning that gun violence was becoming not just more common but more brazen. The phenomenon was not limited to isolated areas. A series of high-profile shootings dominated headlines and rattled public confidence. High-profile incidents happened throughout the year. In July, the shooting of 4-year-old Shaquan Cadogan, who was hit by a stray bullet while playing outside his Toronto home, captured public attention. Just a month later, 17-year-old Amon Beckles was gunned down outside a church during the funeral of a friend who himself had been shot months earlier. Speaking at the time, according to the Star newspaper, Toronto Police Chief Bill Blair called the escalating trend unprecedented, stressing, "It's a small number of people, but the impact is being felt throughout the city." The frequency and unpredictability of the shootings put pressure on police and politicians. Debates unfolded in city council chambers and at Queen's Park. Chief Blair argued for more officers and targeted enforcement, emphasizing this is a growing problem and one we have to attack from all sides. Mayor David Miller, in interviews throughout late 2005, called for a coordinated effort, not just more policing, but more prevention and support for at-risk youth. Community leaders such as Reverend Eugene Rivers, who visited Toronto that year, urged the city to learn from American cities that had faced similar spikes in youth violence. "We have to go to these young people in crisis, give them hope and alternatives, or accept the consequences." As leaders discussed solutions, everyday life continued. Downtown Toronto, especially on Yonge Street, remained a vibrant commercial hub. To many, it symbolized the safety and prosperity of a cosmopolitan city. People from every walk of life are downtown, writer Edward Keenan noted in an I-Weekly op-ed that fall. You can walk Yonge Street at any time of day or night and feel at ease. The shops, the streetcars, the crowds, Toronto feels like a safe place. Shopping, dining, and city events continued, even as headlines reminded the public of the dangers spreading. Any sense of security was badly shaken on Boxing Day 2005. Boxing Day, the first weekday after Christmas, is one of the busiest shopping days on the Canadian calendar. Across the country, people crowd into malls and main streets, hoping for deep discounts on leftover merchandise that has been priced to move after the Christmas rush. In Toronto, as in other big cities, thousands head downtown to the retail heart of Yonge Street and the massive Eaton Centre. The mood is usually festive but crowded, with people of all ages carrying shopping bags, checking out window displays, and hunting for post-holiday deals with family and friends.
Do you remember in the 70s and early 80s, Mike, how Boxing Day was not a shopping day?
Yep, everything was closed on Boxing Day.
It was a holiday.
Yeah, so the origins of Boxing Day began in Britain as the day after Christmas, when the wealthy and churches gave Christmas boxes or gifts of money or leftovers to servants, tradespeople, and the poor. A tradition that grew into the modern-day holiday of shopping and sports sometimes.
Yeah, and it's strange. It's sort of like this sort of like shopping on Boxing Day is like relatively new, right? Because I think retailers began to see the potential for profits, right? And I think it was 1984, a report on the CBC noticed that stores in provinces like Ontario were willing to break the law to open on the 26th.
Well, it used to be against the law to be open on that day, didn't it?
And then in 1996, the Boxing Day Shopping Act was passed in Ontario, removing it as an official holiday to allow business to open.
It's kind of sad, actually, when you think about it.
I weep for the past.
Yeah.
I know. And, you know, the truth is it's important. The importance of Boxing Day is actually shifting. We're starting to do much more of the American-style Black Friday deals before Christmas, which kind of makes more sense. Like, after Christmas, just chill out and stay at home and eat leftovers.
So that's what I was driving at in my script here, is that retailers will have leftover inventory that they need to move, so they'll put the price down by, 2%. And, people will say, oh, look at the deal I'm getting. Anyway.
But does it have to be like the day after Christmas?
No, I don't think it does have to be that day. On December 26, 2005, Yonge Street was crowded from curb to curb. Shoppers filled the sidewalks, going in and out of the stores looking for bargains. Foot Locker, sitting just south of Elm Street and a short walk from the Eaton Centre, drew a particularly dense afternoon crowd. No one expected anything unusual in the rush of Boxing Day. Yet as dusk began to fall, chaos erupted at the heart of the city. At about 5:15 p.m., the sound of gunfire suddenly broke out on Yonge Street. A burst of shots cracked through the noise of the crowd echoing between the storefronts. The gunfire started in front of the Foot Locker and spilled onto the busy sidewalk. Shoppers screamed and dove for cover, ducking behind cars, garbage bins, or anything they could find to shield themselves. Security camera footage from nearby stores would later show panicked shoppers fleeing in all directions as the gun battle unfolded steps from the main entrance to the Eaton Center. In the middle of this chaos, 15-year-old Jane Creba, a local high school student, was nearby with her family out for Boxing Day bargains. She was not part of any group, nor was she a target. She was standing among the crowd when a single bullet struck her in the back. The bullet pierced her aorta, causing catastrophic injuries. Jane collapsed onto the sidewalk as dozens, then hundreds, of people scattered in panic. The noise of gunfire carried for blocks, and the screams of bystanders filled the air. A good friend of mine says seconds and inches. Life's that delicate that it's seconds and inches that determines whether we live or die. Besides the fatal bullet that struck Jane Creba, 6 others were wounded in the exchange. Their injuries range from minor to life-threatening, with some hit in the legs, feet, or chest. JJ, one of the young men in the area, later testified, "I was shot in the left leg. I was near the pizza at the time." Off-duty police officer David Audette, caught in the crossfire, was hit in the leg and foot. He described how quickly everything happened. Quote, "The first shot was fired and the crowd of people scattered in every direction, but there was a distinct group consisting of 3 males who did not scatter. These 3 remained together, moving in a northerly direction. One of the 3 removed a semi-automatic firearm from inside his coat and began shooting towards the south." End quote. Eyewitnesses reported the pandemonium in simple terms. Quote, "I heard a sound similar to that of a cap gun firing coming from the west side. When I looked across the street, I saw a man facing southbound holding a gun in his hand. The shooter held his gun over his head. His wrist was cocked downwards as he fired, with the barrel of the gun at a 45-degree downward angle," said Jessica Fung, who was shopping at Future Shop nearby.
What kind of total scumbag shoots like this on a public street?
Someone who wants to look cool and isn't thinking about other people.
Holding a gun above your head, like somebody who has absolutely no concern for other human beings, none. And like just whatever pathetic gripe he has with someone else, or for some desire for money that he's not earned, and he's willing to he's willing to shoot into the public, right?
Yep.
Like it's just pathetic.
I guess a little man needs a big gun. Oh dear.
Yeah.
People in stores up and down the street dropped to the floor or rushed for the exits. Security footage from Pizza next door captured the moment people ducked for cover as shots rang out on the street outside. The crowd's confusion made it impossible to tell where the danger was coming from, making the situation even more frightening. Some witnesses reported only seeing black males dressed in urban clothing and a mini-robbery seconds before the gunfire. Toronto police received a flood of 911 calls within moments of the gunfire. Callers described a scene of panic, with people running, injured victims on the sidewalk, and witnesses screaming for help. When officers arrived at Yonge Street, the area in front of Foot Locker and Pizza was in disarray. Spent bullet casings littered the pavement. The crowd was dense and chaotic. Hundreds of Boxing Day shoppers were either witnesses, potential victims, or in a state of shock.
Yeah, and that flood of calls is almost like a second echo of the gunshots, isn't it? Like if you think about it sort of poetically in a way, it's like the sound of the city trying to like summon order or get some authority back.
Yeah, it's definitely a scream for help.
Yeah, right? Because at that moment, everything feels ungoverned when people are running around shooting.
You see again what a fine line there is between life and death.
And Justin always says it's 3 meals.
Yeah, that makes sense. If people are going hungry, then they're going to do all kinds of crazy things.
Yeah, he's like, you want to see society collapse? Watch everyone not be able to get 3 meals, and you're going to watch society collapse.
I get grumpy if I can't have lunch on time. Police quickly secured the immediate area, blocking off Yonge Street and shutting down nearby stores. Officers guarded the scene while detectives began the work of identifying evidence and witnesses. Surveillance footage from Foot Locker, Pizza, and other nearby businesses was collected by investigators. Detective John Davidson would later detail how forensic teams found 7 9mm spent shell cases and one .25 caliber spent shell case around the location of the shooting. These shell casings and video images would become critical to piecing together the events. An ambulance rushed Jane Creba to St. Michael's Hospital. Trauma staff did everything they could, but the bullet had pierced her aorta. Dr. Jacqueline Perai, the pathologist who examined her, stated plainly, "The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the torso with perforating injury to the aorta." In the hospital trauma room, a nurse found a bullet near Jane's bed after efforts to revive her failed.
Yeah, I mean, they fought for her, but some wounds might just don't give you a chance.
No, especially one like this.
No matter how hard good doctors are trying. And I think the randomness of that is what leaves people haunted. You know, this kid, she did nothing wrong. She was shopping with her sister.
She was just there.
Just shopping with her sister.
It was supposed to be a happy day for them, I'm sure. But, this is the reason why I didn't do this closer to Christmas.
Ho, 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 here's a Christmas tragedy for you.
Yeah, I think Jane's story is important to tell, and because of recent developments that we'll talk about later, it's timely as well. The news spread fast. Reporters surrounded the police tape just as shocked witnesses and passers-by tried to process what had happened. Media vans and television cameras appeared within the hour, broadcasting live from Yonge Street. The public's reaction was immediate, a mix of anger, disbelief, and sorrow. Calls for action poured into City Hall and the Toronto police. "This isn't the Toronto I know," one resident told a reporter. By that evening, city officials and police faced mounting questions with pressure for answers coming from all sides. In the immediate aftermath, early news coverage described what looked like a random outburst of violence. Many assumed Jane Creba was an innocent bystander caught in a shooting that shattered the traditionally safe, consumer-focused atmosphere of Toronto's downtown shopping district. The headlines that night told of shoppers fleeing down Yonge Street, Boxing Day sales brought to a standstill, blood on the sidewalk, and a city in shock. The gunfire that struck Jane Creba and 6 others came at the close of a year already defined by loss. The fact that the shooting happened on Yonge Street among crowds of holiday shoppers challenged many residents' fundamental assumptions. Police Chief Bill Blair said, "This event has touched a nerve in our city. No one could have imagined that something like this could happen here, right in the heart of our downtown." Jane Creba was born on May 13, 1990 in Toronto, Ontario. She grew up on a leafy street in the city's East End, part of a loving family anchored by her parents, Bruce Creba and Virginia Barton. She was one of 3 siblings, with an older sister, Allison, and a younger brother, Elliot. Jane and Allison were close, sharing everything from secrets to shopping trips. With Elliot, Jane was nurturing and protective, often guiding him through childhood with the gentle wisdom of a natural caregiver. Jane's earliest years were shaped by a home life that valued time spent together. The Crebas were active and curious, exploring city parks, taking family trips, and making memories at the cottage. Jane's parents encouraged creativity, learning, and kindness. They described Jane as a bright light in their lives, energetic, compassionate, and full of curiosity about the world. Education held a deep significance for Jane from an early age. By the time she reached Riverdale Collegiate Institute, one of Toronto's respected public high schools, she had developed into an outstanding student. Teachers remembered Jane's diligence and her genuine interest in learning. Her marks consistently landed her among the top of her class, especially in English and history, where her talent for analysis and writing stood out. She helped classmates with homework, ran review sessions before tests, and acted as a quiet leader in group activities. Jane was not just an academic, she was a people person who thrived on connection. Friends and teachers alike recalled her warmth and ability to bring others together. She listened more than she talked, which made her a confidant for those who needed one. Jane's empathy was apparent in her reluctance to gossip and her readiness to show kindness. Even in a crowded high school hallway, Jane made time for a hug or a kind word. Sports were another big part of Jane's life. She played on school teams and joined neighborhood pickup games, excelling in volleyball and soccer. Jane was recognized by coaches and teammates not only for her athletic skills but also for her encouragement and positivity. Win or lose, she was there to celebrate other successes and cheer them on. Jane's healthy approach to competition became a model for younger students. Outside of school, Jane's world was equally full. She was an active member of the community and loved spending time outdoors, whether biking to the library, walking her family dog, or hiking with her father. With her mother and Allison, she would visit local cafes and bookstores, cherishing the simplicity of time spent together. Holidays and traditions were vital to Jane. Boxing Day was a favorite, with family shopping trips and shared laughter filling the day. Jane's friends often described her as the nicest, funniest, and prettiest person they knew. Her laugh made people want to join in whatever she was doing. She treated everyone with dignity, regardless of their social circles, and easily made new friends by welcoming newcomers with a warm smile. "Everyone loved her," said one of her classmates. "She made everyone feel like they mattered." At home, Jane pitched in with chores and joined in family activities. She built a strong relationship with each family member, confiding in her mother, sharing trusted secrets with her sister, and watching over her little brother. The Creba home was often filled with music. The family played instruments together, and Jane would sing and dance around the kitchen, her spirit lifting those around her. The loss of Jane Creba on December 26, 2005, shook her family and community to its foundations. In the immediate aftermath, her family described themselves as engulfed by immense grief. Bruce and Virginia remembered their daughter as brave, thoughtful, and joyful, saying the world was diminished by her absence. Her siblings, Allison and Elliot, were devastated. Allison lost her closest confidant and Elliot his protector. The family retreated into their tight bond, leaning on one another to get through each day.
Yeah, and I think what happened to Jane doesn't just belong to her family, even though, of course, they carry the loss the deepest. But
Yeah.
I think her memory kind of belongs to all of us. And it has to be because, as a society, we have a responsibility. And, when a kid's life is cut short in a public way like this, I think the city and the country both, we kind of have an inherited duty to remember her, not as a statistic or headline, but a person who was stolen from us. And I think, holding her story together is part of how we say she mattered and still matters. But I think what's important is then what follow-up do we have to make sure this stuff stops happening? Right, that's so often where we fall down.
This is why we do Dark Poutine this way, because we don't want to just be another show talking about here's the crime and here's the criminal. There are people involved in every single one of these stories. Jane Creba, her family, and friends are human beings.
Yeah.
Jane Creba is a person who is gone from this world because of someone else's selfish activity. Jane's high school responded swiftly to the tragedy. Students and staff at Riverdale Collegiate Institute gathered in grief, offering memories and comfort. The principal shared stories of Jane's achievements and character, reminding the school community of the impact she made in just 15 years. School counselors opened their doors to all who needed help processing their sorrow. Students organized vigils, wrote heartfelt messages, and sought ways to commemorate their friend's life, reflecting the deep impression Jane had made in every corner of the school. On Yonge Street, where Jane had spent her final moments, a spontaneous memorial began to form as news of her death spread. Flowers, candles, cards, and stuffed animals lined the sidewalk. Messages from friends, strangers, and city officials appeared, all expressing sorrow, outrage, and affection for a life lost too soon. The city, still bustling with post-holiday activity, paused to mourn Jane, and media coverage brought further attention to the profound sense of loss. Community gatherings and candlelight vigils united people in shared sorrow. The Creba family was flooded with condolences and support, reminders of the many lives Jane touched. City leaders called for reflection, while ordinary Torontonians reached out with donations, offers of sympathy, and words of encouragement. As a friend at a vigil said, Jane brought out something good in people even now. In the days that followed, police launched a determined and highly visible investigation. Dozens of officers flooded Yonge Street, collecting surveillance videos, speaking to witnesses, and seeking cooperation from anyone present on Boxing Day. Detectives established Project Green Apple, named in tribute to Jane's favorite fruit, focusing on identifying everyone involved in the chaotic scene. Arrests came within hours, with police quickly detaining 2 men at Castle Frank subway station. As the investigation widened, it became one of Toronto's most prominent ever, mobilizing more than 20 detectives and drawing on citywide resolve to see justice for Jane. Jane Creba's life before her death was that of a remarkable young woman, an outstanding student, loyal friend, loving daughter and sister, and a source of kindness and hope to everyone around her. The immediate community and family response to her loss reflected both the depth of her character and the powerful legacy she left behind even at 15 years old. As the police investigation gained momentum, the city continued to mourn Jane, determined not to forget the short, bright life that was so unfairly taken away. We'll be back with more after a quick break. And we are back. Matthew, thoughts so far?
Yeah, I think what strikes me most is from the first half is how 2 stories kind of run in parallel tracks. One is like the city story itself. 2005 branded the year of the gun, and downtown Toronto, shaken by the sudden collapse of the sense of safety that it had.
Right.
And the other is Jane's, this 15-year-old kid who loved her family, thrived in school, played sports, lit up rooms.
Yep.
And, violence always collapses 2 tracks into one. This private life gets forced into the role of a public symbol, whether or not the family wants it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the cruelty here. Jane was turned into sort of a shorthand for Toronto's fear.
Right.
And what in truth, she should only be remembered as herself.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the other thing worth noticing is how much place matters. So Yonge Street, God, I've walked, I know exactly, you're telling this story, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, me too.
I've been there hundreds of times. Yonge Street just wasn't just a street, it's kind of the city stage. Like, this is a main shopping area.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Families shop there, people feel safe. I've never walked down Yonge Street feeling like I'm unsafe, right? And Toronto liked to tell itself that this was proof of this sort of cosmopolitan calm, but
right.
That's why I think the shooting, this one specifically, landed so hard. It showed that violence doesn't respect sort of symbolic geography. This is the heart of the city, and it's just as vulnerable as any sort of marginalized neighborhood.
Right.
And the public response, the flowers, the visuals, the headlines.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about Jane. It was about the city trying to stitch its own identity back together to say this isn't who we are.
Yeah.
Even though in that moment it was. Right?
Absolutely, 100%. In addition to the high-profile police investigation, the aftermath of the Boxing Day shootout intensified discussions already underway, particularly in local government. Some called for harsh new penalties and more aggressive policing. Others, like City Councillor Adam Vaughan, argued, we have to address the roots of violence, not just react to the symptoms. That means investment in youth programs and social supports.
How about both?
Yeah, exactly.
Harsher penalties and investment in youth programs, right? Oh, we missed you in youth programs, but you've murdered somebody in the street? Well, you're going away forever.
Yeah. As police dug in, it quickly became clear that Jane had indeed been an innocent bystander of yet another gang-related shooting at the hands of gun-toting thugs. There were 2 rival groups involved, but there was so much pandemonium and so many moving parts that it was hard to sort out who did what. More than 20 detectives were assigned full-time to Project Green Apple, making it one of the most extensive and resource-intensive investigations in the Toronto Police Service's history at the time. Early press conferences made clear that the department was prepared to devote whatever it would take. Police Chief Bill Blair described it as a lengthy and intricate investigation, acknowledging the significant stakes for the city and the grieving Creba family. From the start, the scale was unprecedented. Detectives obtained dozens of search warrants, authorized the use of wiretaps on phone lines and cellular phones, and pressed all available teams into forensic work. Investigators combed through physical evidence from the scene, spent bullets, shell casings, and personal belongings left behind when the crowd scattered. They carefully logged every item that could hold a clue. Police learned that members of one of the gangs, the Martha Eaton Way MEW, began arriving at the Eaton Center through the early afternoon on December 26, 2005. The group, tied to the Martha Eaton Way social housing complex in northwest Toronto, included Lewis Woodcock, known as Big Guy, to Sean Barnett as Zito, brothers Andre and Sean Thompson, Vincent Davis, Visa, and Andrew Smith, among others. Security footage, later reviewed by police, captured their movements through the shopping mall. Their clothing, mostly dark and baggy, reflected typical street fashion of the time.
I'm not even going to talk clothing. They're a gang, and gangs are so pathetic.
Yeah.
These guys aren't soldiers in some noble cause. They're thugs dragging their grudges into a public space.
Yep.
Treating downtown like their own arena, right? And whatever story they told themselves about, you see this gang stuff all the time about loyalty and respect, and it's all just cowardice. It's boys with guns willing to risk anyone's life.
Well, that loyalty and respect doesn't extend to anybody else outside their gang, so, what's the point, really? Just trolls.
Steve's licking his paw like he's never licked a paw before.
Oh, dear. Anyway, the MEW group's arrival was watched closely by mall security and later pieced together during the police investigation. As captured on video, the group roamed in loose formation, often accompanied by friends and several young women. Inside the crowded mall and on downtown streets, the group's behavior stood out. Officers and witnesses described them as predatory as they sized up other young men in the area. A police affidavit later summarized, "The group is captured following, confronting, and sometimes surrounding their intended targets, positioning themselves in intimidating stances. Tension built quickly between the MEW group and a group they considered rivals, referred to as the Vaughan Guys. The rivals were young men from another West End Toronto neighborhood, each side aware of and wary of the other, both with reputations for street feuds. Confrontations began inside the Eaton Center's busy walkways but soon spilled onto Yonge Street. Several of these encounters were caught on video. MEW members followed, encircled, and at times engaged their targets. An attempted robbery and theft were reported. Around 4:25 p.m., Richard Steele was cornered and assaulted outside the mall. In his police interview, Steele recalled, "Ante up, you know what time it is," one man said. Asked if he wanted to get murked, Steele next saw the barrel of a gun and the group rifling through his pockets. He lost 2 cell phones and several $100s. The tensions escalated further when the MEW group encountered 2 more Vaughan Guys near the mall's H&M store. Shouts were exchanged. A fight broke out between the groups. One member of MEW said, "Let's go, and the group exited the mall, regrouping on Yonge Street. By now, the atmosphere had shifted. Members were seen adjusting their jackets and waistbands, appearing on edge, as witnesses described to police. The 2 groups moved north up Yonge Street, eventually converging near Foot Locker, just south of Elm Street. At this time, the rival group, led by Jeremiah Valentine and Milan Mijatovic, was already inside the store. Valentine, captured on surveillance, appeared nervous and agitated, glancing repeatedly over his shoulder. Later, a witness told police Valentine was acting as if he knew something bad was going to happen. It was widely believed among investigators and witnesses that Valentine was carrying a concealed revolver. The confrontation erupted in front of Foot Locker as shoppers continued to pass by. Accounts and surveillance footage document that around 10 to 15 young people were clustered around the store's entrance. The initial argument escalated fast as voices rose and tempers flared and guns were drawn. Multiple witnesses saw Woodcock, Barnett, and Valentine all holding weapons. One witness, a 16-year-old later charged, told police, "The moment that the Vaughan guy, Valentine, saw it, the gun, he started shooting. As soon as the first shot rang out, others joined in." Witnesses heard a rapid burst of gunfire, estimating more than a dozen shots were fired as chaos overtook the sidewalk. Jane Creba, exiting a nearby pizza with her sister, was caught in the crossfire. She was struck in the back and collapsed as shoppers scrambled for cover. 6 others were hit by stray bullets, including Jay Zhu, Helen Yu, Dorian Wallace, Milan Mijatovic, David Odette, and a young man identified as JJ. In the seconds after the shooting, members of the MEW group scattered, some ducking down subway entrances, others disappearing on foot into the city's streets.
Yeah, run and hide, pathetic people, right? Do all that damage, murder a kid in front of her own sister, and then go and run and hide.
Just like the little rats they really are, yep. A critical part of the investigation was collecting and reviewing surveillance video. Investigators retrieved high-resolution footage from dozens of sources: mall security cameras, street-level storefronts, and public transit security systems. The video provided a nearly frame-by-frame chronology. Police could identify who entered and exited the Foot Locker and surrounding stores, reconstruct the positions and actions of every suspect and bystander, and time-stamp movements before, during, and after the shooting. Detective John Davidson and forensic teams noted that the clarity of the images helped show clothing, faces, and specific interactions. Surveillance footage played a key role in confirming the presence and movements of both shooters and victims. Forensic work at the scene led to the recovery of 9 spent shell casings, 7 from a 9mm Ruger pistol and others from a .357 Magnum revolver and a .25 caliber pistol. Each casing and bullet was cataloged and tests were performed to match casings with specific firearms. Detective Gary Lawrence, a firearms expert, testified that 7 9mm spent shell cases and 1 .25 caliber spent shell case were among the first and most telling pieces of evidence found near the Foot Locker entrance. The ballistics work also included tracing bullet trajectories to link injuries to specific shooters and reconstructing events shot by shot to determine what weapons were fired and in which direction. DNA was recovered from guns discarded at the scene and compared to samples from suspects. Quickly, the investigation produced results. Within hours of the shooting, officers tracked Andre Thompson and a young person known by the initials JSR to Castle Frank subway station. During the arrest, JSR was found with a stolen cell phone taken during the robbery of Richard Steele, a key victim from earlier Boxing Day events. These early leads prompted further surveillance and ultimately the rollout of undercover operations. Raids came next, some meticulously planned for months. In June 2006, at dawn, Toronto police executed search warrants at 14 locations across the city. Multiple teams of officers broke into apartments and homes at the same time, arresting 6 more men and 2 teenagers. This has been a lengthy and intricate investigation, Chief Blair said when making the first set of mass arrests in the case. Charges ranged from second-degree murder to manslaughter and attempted murder, with most suspects linked to rival gangs. 8 individuals have been charged in relation to the Boxing Day shooting that tragically claimed the life of 15-year-old Jane Creba and left 6 other bystanders injured in downtown Toronto, a CBC report summarized. Detectives used a combination of traditional police work and new technology. Cell phone records showed contact and movement patterns among the suspects, with logs confirming calls before and after the shooting. We used wiretaps which picked up key admissions and information, lead investigator detective Brian Borg stated in a later summary affidavit. Several wiretapped conversations were conducted in coded street slang, with police experts interpreting phrases like G-code up as references to gang loyalty and the need for silence about the shooting. Surveillance and informants provided further links, as did metadata from text messages. Forensic science was pivotal. DNA collected from the grips and slides of seized firearms, from hats and clothing found at the scene, and from blood and skin left on bullets was matched to individuals in the Martha Eaton Way group. Ballistics firmly linked specific shell casings to the same guns recovered from suspects' homes, and DNA matched those who had handled them in the chaos around Yonge Street. Monica Sloan, a biologist with Ontario's Centre of Forensic Sciences, confirmed that Woodcock could not be excluded as the donor of the DNA found on the grip of the gun seized from JSR, a link that was 1 in 170 million against coincidence. Police also traced movement by using city transit video capturing suspects such as JSR and Andre Thompson entering and exiting subway stations after the shooting.
I hope you find out what's going on with your investigation, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, believe me, we're
all right.
You know when I said to you, we're missing one little piece of the puzzle to put the eyes and nose on it?
Yeah.
We're this close.
Okay.
We're this close.
It's cool.
That close. And you know what? We'll be there.
All right.
Yeah, we'll be there. And a little piece of evidence from here. A little
So there, listen there.
people chatting because they like
Listen,
to
let me
talk.
tell you something about
Yeah.
the streets too. Another thing that I want you to really know about
Yeah.
the streets.
Oh yeah, I always like to hear stuff from the
Okay,
streets.
listen. You see, no matter what, you see, once the streets say something, that's what happened. You get me? True or false? Once the streets says it, it is what it is. Forget about what the police. You know what I'm saying? From the streets are saying something, that's what people are going by. You know what I'm saying? No matter who you are. You know what I'm saying? So
So if the street's saying that Jeremiah Valentine was there on Boxing Day and was involved in Boxing Day, I shouldn't believe that, or should I believe it?
I'm
That's
trying.
what the
You're not
streets-
here. No, you're not hearing what I'm saying. Do you understand what I just said?
I heard exactly what you
Okay,
just said.
so what do you take from that when I say that? If the streets are saying something, that's what they're saying. Everybody's gonna say what they're saying. It doesn't necessarily mean that has to be true. That's my key point. That's what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So people will be saying this, but like, you know what I'm saying? Facts, bro. Facts speak it out.
Yeah,
and I please,
exactly.
you see your facts? Like, I'm confident. You get me? So just find your facts and holler at
Oh,
me
yeah.
when you have your story straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's it.
Ugh. More than a dozen people faced charges in connection with the Boxing Day 2005 shooting that killed Jane Creba and wounded 6 others. Those accused included both adults and young people. The main defendants were Jeremiah Valentine, Tashawn Barnett, Lewis Woodcock, Andre and Sean Thompson, Vincent Davis, Andrew Smith, Jarrell Simpson Rowe, JSR, and several unnamed minors. Charges range from second-degree murder and attempted murder to manslaughter, robbery, and firearms offenses. The Crown's main arguments focused on forensic ballistics, DNA evidence, and the controversial concept of party liability, which can hold all involved in a crime scene responsible for a resulting death, even if it was unclear who fired the fatal shot. Police and prosecutors relied on surveillance images, shell casing matches, and witness testimony. Defense teams pushed back, challenging the reliability of the eyewitness accounts and questioning interpretations of party liability. At different stages, lawyers for the accused argued that some clients were not directly involved or that the evidence was too weak to proceed to trial on the most serious charges. Judge John McMahon described the proceedings as complex, given the number of accused and the overlapping accusations. Key trials and plea bargains unfolded over several years. In December 2009, Jeremiah Valentine pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 12 years. Prosecutors said forensic evidence showed it was highly probable Valentine fired the bullet that killed Jane Creba, though they could not be totally sure. There were at least 2 other guns in play. Justice McMahon said to Valentine, "Had you not entered a guilty plea, parole eligibility would have been much further away." Woodcock and Barnett went to trial. In April 2010, both were found guilty of manslaughter rather than second-degree murder, but were convicted of 4 counts each of aggravated assault for the bystanders who were wounded. The jury rejected the most severe charges. Both men received significant prison sentences, and their convictions underscored the court's acceptance of the Crown's theory that everyone armed and ready to use a gun in a chaotic, crowded setting was culpable. Jarrell Simpson Rowe, arrested at age 17 and charged initially as a youth, was ultimately convicted as an adult of second-degree murder in December 2008. In April 2009, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 7 years. During sentencing, the judge noted Simpson Rowe's dysfunctional childhood and his ties to criminal peers, but stressed that the seriousness of the shooting left little option but to impose the maximum sentence available by law. Simpson Rowe repeatedly applied for parole but was denied for several years, with the parole board citing his difficulty managing emotions and ongoing affiliation with high-risk peers. Other accused saw their cases resolved with lesser pleas, acquittals, or dropped charges. For example, 4 individuals had their manslaughter charges dropped due to insufficient evidence, the Crown concluding there was no reasonable prospect of conviction after preliminary hearings. Some youth defendants were found not to have fired a weapon or to have played a minimal role and thus avoided heavier penalties. Throughout the court process, the impact on the Creba family and surviving victims was never far from view. Victim impact statements described lifelong grief, trauma, and lasting injuries. Helen Yu, one of the wounded, told the court, "Every day I remember the pain and the fear." The court and public reaction was shaped by both the scale of the tragedy and by broader questions about how the justice system handles youth gang violence, systemic poverty, and the realities of street-level gun crime in Toronto. Many wondered how things could be different, with Detective Sergeant Savas Kiriakou stating, "Toronto has finally lost its innocence." We're going to feel this day for a long time to come. Jeremiah Valentine was released on full parole in January 2025 after serving more than a decade behind bars for second-degree murder. The Parole Board of Canada justified Valentine's release by citing observable and measurable progress during his incarceration, even as a psychological assessment noted a 76% chance of recidivism within 5 years. The board wrote that his release will contribute to the protection of society, a decision that would soon come under heavy scrutiny. Matthew is going to love this. Just 7 months after regaining his freedom, Valentine was back in the news, this time in Montreal. On July 15, 2025, Valentine was arrested and charged with first-degree murder after 33-year-old Abdek Kennedith Ibrahim was shot and killed in a downtown Montreal square at around 12:45 a.m. News reports quickly identified the accused as the same Jeremiah Valentine linked to the Jane Creba shooting. One of the gunmen convicted of her shooting, now 43-year-old Jeremiah Valentine, was released on full parole back in January. Now he's allegedly struck again, a Global News report stated.
I'd like to tip my hat to the parole board, Mike, and say, job well done. Once again, you're partially responsible for another person's death because you're weak and you can't see reason.
No, didn't they do a great job? Just fantastic. Excellent work. I mean, there's only a 24% chance that he's not going to reoffend. We have a quota of people that we have to let out every year, so this guy's going to be one of them.
Apparatchiks, bureaucrats.
Exactly. Court records show that Valentine was living in downtown Montreal at the time of the most recent shooting. The case against him was quickly postponed until the fall, with neither the Crown nor the parole board commenting further to the media. The fact that Valentine was released even after warnings from psychologists and correction staff prompted immediate questions from the public and policymakers about parole board procedures, supervision after release, and the risk assessments for violent offenders. Valentine's new arrest reignited outrage in both Toronto and Montreal. It has led to renewed debate about the lasting risks of gang violence and the challenges of rehabilitation for those involved in high-profile violent crimes. I'm sure as this case unfolds in the public eye, which it will, there will be lots of questions for the parole board. And there should be. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 387, Boxing Day Bystander, the killing of Jane Creba. That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week. Here's our first voicemail, Matthew.
Hi, Mike and Matthew. It's Sam Allen calling from Kawartha Lakes, Ontario. I like to, say Peterborough and the Kawarthas. Anyways, long-time listener. I've called a few times as well. You guys are honestly so phenomenal, and I just couldn't give you guys a call. It's been a long year, I know, for all of us, and hearing you guys talk about your personal stuff is just really helpful. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer around the same time that I saw Matthew posting about his diagnosis online. And it's been a long few months, and I have been listening to the podcast on my drives, so it's been 3-hour drives most days that I'm taking my mom to her appointment. And I've just been stockpiling the episodes for appointment days, and it's been honestly it's It's so nice to hear your guys' voice before and after I take her to her appointments. And I just wanted to call to let you guys know that I just took her to her last radiation appointment. She did chemo surgery and now 20 radiations. I am just going home from her last radiation, and she got the biopsy back, and she's cancer-free. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm so happy that I have you guys to listen to. Anyways, Mike, also, thank you so much for what you do. I've been listening since probably episode 60 or earlier, and you are just so kind-hearted, and I just love it. Also, the only reality TV show I like watching is also with you on it. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and go shit in your hat.
I didn't quite catch her name. I've listened to it a few times.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Mom's doing okay.
We're so glad your mom's okay. And, yeah, I've had enough of cancer this year. Oh, my goodness. I'm even thinking about shaving my mustache for Movember this year, but, you know, that's a bridge too far. Oh, boy. Anyway.
You and your stash.
Well, it's kind of who I am at this point. I grew this mustache years ago, and, well... You're
the mustache.
And as far as Traders goes, yeah, I was on season 2 of Traders Canada. Season 3 starts on October 21st. So watch that instead of watching me and my dumb face on TV. We haven't given our caller a job yet, so let's do that.
I'm going to say she's a poet, because there's actually a lot of poets came out of the Kawartha area, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Robbie Burns. No, just kidding. She's a poet.
Alrighty, let's move on to our next voicemail.
Hey, Mike and Matthew. Big fan of the podcast. I heard you guys need a few more people to call in. I figured now's my nudge. Just want to say that my step-grandmother, is actually the mother of Leola Gulliker, and you covered that story in the Rosedale murder case. So I'm just going to put in a request for an episode. I don't know if you guys do more modern ones, but maybe the Breyer, Smigelski, and his accomplice, I don't remember his accomplice's name, the Canada-wide manhunt from about 6 years ago. That'd be, I think, a pretty good episode to cover. Not very many, I don't think any podcasts that are well-known have covered that. So, yeah, just hope you guys are doing well. I love the show. It's a lot of Canadian content. No, pretty much all Canadian content. And, yeah, you guys are pretty funny. So, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate it. We do need more voicemails, and we appreciate every single darn one we get. We have covered that case. It is episode 128, The Murders of China Deese, Lucas Fowler, and Leonard Dick. Yeah, so with Dark Poutine, we usually name the episodes after victims instead of the killers. I know that makes it harder to search for, but that's the way we do it. So if you're curious about a case, go to darkpoutine.com and search the victims' names. And if we've done it, it'll come up. Sometimes I don't even name the killer in the description. I try to do that as much as I can for keyword search, but I really don't want the focus to be on them. I want it to be on the victims of crime. So what do you think our friend who called in does for his work, Matthew?
He works at No Frills.
I shop at No Frills.
Because he gave us no name.
Oh, dear. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, because he gave us no name. Okay, that makes sense.
I'm picturing him wearing a yellow shirt that says... no name on it.
Oh, goodness gracious me.
No name.
I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that I covered that story in my book as well, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, in Chapter 14 called Northern Rampage on page 165. Just so you know. I'm going to hypnotize you now. Everyone who is listening is going to go and buy 5 of my books, 1 for themselves and 4 for their close friends and family. Do it now. It will help Mike survive. That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. We don't have any donut money donors or patrons to speak of this week, but that's okay. We know you still love us. We do. We really do. Thanks to all our patrons and donut money donors past and present for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal or interact using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my 2 books are available to order via links on the Dark Poutine website or anywhere fine books are sold. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you gave Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing. And that is it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, well, be good to each other for sure. And then don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Don't be firing weapons on streets, people. That's bad apple behavior.
Yeah, that's downright rotten egg. Bad apple, stinky, poo-poo behavior. Stop it. Bye.